1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to rock and roll. How about the power of forward looking? How about pay intelligence? What does that even mean? We're going to find out here today. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Bros, prepare for an eye-opening episode that delves into the realm of talent acquisition and compensation strategies. Our guest today is the visionary behind WageScape, a game-changing platform that provides cutting-edge compensation intelligence for today's rapidly, fiercely competitive job market. With the ability to offer real-time insight into wages, job trends, and pay strategies, WageScape is reshaping the way businesses attract, retain, and thrive with top talent. So get ready to explore the future of compensation with our guest, Mr. Cary Sparrow. Welcome to the program, my friend.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Oh, you got a smile on your face. Hopefully I mentioned your intro pretty good. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you get to develop WageScape?
You know, I've always been a computer geek. I fell in love with computers. This was way back in the 70s when they first came out, and always kind of had that as part of my DNA. And my career followed lots of different forms. But one of the things I saw was that information about jobs and pay is really bad. It's late. It's really hard to interpret. It doesn't do you much good. You have to be trained in special ways in order to interpret it. It's just not very accessible. And so I sensed that there was an easier way to do things. I sensed that there was a market for that kind of information, and went ahead and founded WageScape in order to take advantage of that. We've been around since 2015, and we got great brands as clients, and we're growing pretty fast.
Literally, we were just going over vocabulary in the classroom here on different pay scales, right? Pay periods. So the difference between a weekly pay, a biweekly pay, semi-monthly pay, and you got, like I told you earlier, a bunch of 17-year-olds here who are about to enter the world. Some of them maybe have their very first job and they're going into the workforce. What advice would you give them as they get ready to go find that job, maybe negotiate for a career at some point here in the future? What are some things that they should look for when it comes to pay so that they can kind of get a little heads up amongst the competitive market that they're going into fighting for jobs?
Sure. Boy, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we could cover from the kind of life philosophy standpoint of work hard and try lots of different things because you're at the age when it's really the time to figure out what really interests you and what you want to devote a good part of your existence to. As it relates to pay, there's a lot more information about pay that's out there right now. Don't assume that you have to take what's being offered to you. Don't assume that the first job that you get is the only job that's out there or the first job that you get offered is the only job that's out there. So there's better resources that are available to you. Do your homework. What sounds like it might be a good paying job, there might be actually better paying jobs. Or if you don't really care quite as much about money, then don't get hung up on pay. Go find the quality of the job that you want, with the environment that you want to work in, with the kind of people around you that you're going to learn from, and the kinds of stuff that is going to help build your skills and experiences for better things going forward. So what you want.
Yeah, we were also talking about minimum wage and the effects that we have. We're here in California, so our minimum wage is like $15.50 an hour compared to the federal, which is at like $7.25 an hour. How does that affect recruiting talent when you maybe have an organization based in a state that has a higher minimum wage but wants to take advantage of some of these different opportunities, especially post-COVID world where we can communicate like this and a lot of the work can get done like this, not necessarily in a high minimum wage state?
Yeah, companies have started looking, most companies felt that remote work was not really a natural way of getting work done and running an organization. Maybe there were certain jobs that could be done remote, but they were the exception, not the rule. And the pandemic really changed that. It flipped it on its head. And there's a bit of kind of sorting things out that's still going on right now. But along the way, companies realize that they don't have to source talent where they have existing facilities, that they can go anywhere in the country, and in a lot of cases, anywhere in the world, to get talent for a number of roles, more roles than they expected. And so they're getting better at that. And one of the things that we do at WageScape is we show kind of what those differentials are and how fast they're changing. Because frankly, everything is local. The amount by which advertised wages are going up and have been going up for the last couple of years is more than 20% a year. And it's huge. But what's really kind of mind blowing is that if you're in Indiana, that rate is over 60%. And if you're in parts of the Bay Area, the advertised wages are actually have been going down a little bit, not much, but a little bit. So where you are has everything to do with what's going on with pay, and where you want to hire for has everything that to do with what you should be thinking about for pay. And in the past, there's been really no good information about how pay in locations changes. As like a marketing specialist in Louisville, Kentucky, makes something totally different than a marketing specialist in Spokane, Washington, or in San Jose, California. And there's never been good resources to say, here's what's actually happening there, until we came on.
Yeah, that information is super valuable for employers and employees alike. So let's dive into your business here, because I mean, when people come on the show, they're here to promote their business. They're here to get their information out to a specific audience. So I want to make sure we do that. So if you can explain it as simply as you possibly could, what are you selling and who is your target audience? Who are you looking for?
Yeah, anyone who needs to make decisions about how to be competitive with acquiring talent, so recruiting, and how to make sure that other competitors are not stealing your talent, so retention, has to stay on top of what's happening with pay and hiring in the labor market today. And that's changing really fast. What we do is we scour the world of the labor market, and we collect a massive amount of information about who's hiring, how much they're paying, what they're looking for, what skills are needed, how easy is it for them to get talent, how hard is it for them to get talent. And we combine all of that into one big data platform. And for some companies that are very large, or they've invested in a lot in data analytics teams, what we do is we sell them access to our data platform. And for other companies that really just want to be able to see what's happening, they want kind of the business intelligence without all the need to do all the data analysis behind it. We have an application that we also call WageScape that we provide to them. And the kinds of folks, we have kind of two segments of folks that buy our data in whatever form. One is in the human capital area, the HR area. So folks that are into recruiting, or setting pay policies, or doing talent analytics, figuring out how talent can drive business performance better. Those are the folks that use that data in the HR realm. And then there's another kind of client that we have that uses our data for a totally different purpose, which is as a predictor for what businesses will be doing in the future. So if your hiring is going up, it's a pretty good indicator that you've got a good outlook on your business in the coming months. And those are folks that are in the financial services community that run hedge funds, or investment managers, and so forth. And they use our data as a signal for the direction of the economy and individual businesses overall. Most of our business is in the human capital space, and that's where most of our growth is happening right now.
But that data is so valuable. I'd imagine that especially people in the financial services can really capitalize on knowing what trends are happening, as well as, of course, HR people, right? They want to make the best hiring choice they possibly can, because turnover can be really expensive, can cost a lot of money and time, and they want to kind of eliminate that as best they possibly can. when you're attracting people to WageScape, is there any like promos, discounts, or things that you offer people so that they can come in and say, look, let me take a look at this data. Let me take a look at what you have to offer. What are you doing to attract clientele?
Well, we do a lot to attract clientele. We've got a pretty revved up marketing engine that reaches out to folks that should be aware of WageScape. WageScape represents not just a new brand, but an entirely new way of understanding what's going on with jobs and pay and skills and so forth. And so we're all about broadening kind of market awareness. But beyond that, our website is set up so that people can get in and try out and see what our data looks like, try out things that are relevant to them. We've got alliances with a number of organizations that allow their members to use our data as a way to get them familiar with it. And then also when people do reach out to us, they want to get pretty familiar with our market intelligence and make sure that they understand how to use it. So we always give them a free opportunity to try out the data themselves.
Like any business, I'm sure you come across objections and things that people are hesitating to kind of move forward with you. You kind of mentioned there's kind of a steep learning curve, especially when it comes to the data. What are some things that people should know about your business, some key things people should know about your business to help them kind of make that buying decision easier?
Well, the one thing I would say is that this is no longer a nice to have. If you're in the business of trying to figure out what you should be paying people, or if you're in the business of trying to figure out how to compete for talent against, top competitors, especially if you're in businesses where you've got, hourly workers that, it means a lot for them to get an extra dollar an hour, and they will switch companies if to do it. If you're in that kind of role, it's no longer optional for you to just rely on historical economic data or historical salary survey data in order to set your pay policies. You need something that is much more real-time, immediate, and local, something that's much more transparent, like what WageScape offers. So that's one thing, is to recognize that the tools that have been available in the past that maybe worked when wage inflation was 2, 3, 4% are no longer good enough. And you need something like WageScape in order to do that. That's the first thing to recognize. The other thing to recognize is that you can't generalize what's going on with pay changes and competition for talent look totally different depending on what job you're hiring for and depending on what locations you're looking in. So again, you've got to adjust your lens so that you're not just making kind of blanket assumptions about how to set pay policy. You've got to get very specific by location and by job. The other is there's a huge opportunity to expand your perspective, which is the ability to see exactly what your competitors are doing, who's competing for the same talent that you are, and what exactly are they advertising for their pay, and how well are they attracting their pay? How do their roles change compared to yours, and where can you go to get talent? Because that's a pretty good indicator of where the talent sits. So there's new opportunities, but those new opportunities and new capabilities are going to very quickly become must-haves and not just kind of nice-to-haves, not just something for early adopters.
Oh, yes. Oh, I mean, technology is changing so rapidly, especially with the emergence of AI. This talent market is just getting more and more competitive. So attracting the right talent is important. Retaining the skills of these employees is absolutely probably one of the most top priorities a company has to offer, because when you grab somebody who's really good, keeping them is another aspect of that business. How does WageScape kind of empower these businesses to set like effective recruitment strategies, pay strategies based on these dynamic trends that you're talking about?
Yeah. So one of the things is it helps cut through the fog, right? I mean, it used to be that the conventional wisdom was that employees didn't leave companies for pay. You didn't lose employees for pay. That you lost them because of management style or culture primarily. That's not true anymore. It hasn't been true for a couple of years. When wages are going up, 20% a year or more, when minimum wage has been going up, especially as fast as it has, but now minimum wage, I live in Minnesota, and even the California minimum wage is not sufficient to compete for hourly talent here in Minnesota. And it's probably not in California either. And that's a huge change. And so when things are going up that fast, creating the visibility to what's happening with pay is essential for retention, because great employees will still leave the company for a 10% raise, a 15% raise, a 20% raise. And that's the kind of thing that we've been seeing and continue to see. The other is that companies or employees are getting a lot more selective about the companies that they go to work for. And pay is now something that is absolutely a factor in that decision, but there's other things too. And it's not just benefits. One of the things that happened over the pandemic was that the number of job advertisements that emphasized the benefits that were being offered jumped from around 2% up to about 20%, meaning that companies were recognizing that they had something really valuable, but they weren't telling anybody about it. But even that's not enough anymore, right? So there's lots of other considerations like equity, like the environment, like aspects of culture that better fit with the values of employees, becoming much more important to folks. And so having the ability to see who's competing and what are they competing on, and the ability to see how you place in the market is a competitive requirement now. And so you need the tools, you need the insights to be able to give you that kind of view.
One of the unique features that WageScape talks about is forward-looking pay intelligence. Can you kind of simplify that? It sounds really intense, right? And we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what do you mean by forward-looking? Like you talked a little bit about the, inflation coming in and wages kind of going up across different sectors. How does this capability assist businesses in anticipating and preparing for any future pay trends that might be coming in the future that are not really visible to the naked eye?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things to recognize is, compared to what, and any kind of data about what's happening with the labor market is that folks are used to using is either coming from the government or it's coming from specialty consulting firms that generally will go out and survey folks about what they have been paid and what companies have been paying existing employees. It's very backwards looking. It's looking at decisions that were made in the past, usually a year or possibly 2 or more years in the past. The kind of information that we measure is what companies are hiring for. And so what are they going to pay for the jobs that they're hiring for right now? And those jobs take a few months to fill in from the time that they advertise a job to when they actually get through the hiring process to when somebody starts. And so when we talk about forward looking, that's what we're talking about. The difference between, understanding, looking in the rearview mirror at decisions that were made months or even years ago and trying to figure out what that means going ahead versus decisions that are made now about jobs that will exist in the future and what companies are doing in order to compete for those jobs. That's why, like right now in the first half of this year, advertised pay across all jobs in the United States, all types of jobs, the low, entry level hourly, all the way up to most senior executives, what the advertised pay went up by over 20%, right? So over 20% this year. Meanwhile, we're talking about inflation has been cooling down, and actual wages have been going up, but folks are predicting because inflation's coming down that maybe wages will slow down. We're not seeing any of that in our data. We're seeing that actually the wages that folks need to offer in order to compete are continuing to go up at record rates, and we're not seeing that slow down at all. So that's the difference between what you read in the press and what you see with the kind of, really in-depth market intelligence that we're able to provide.
You're compiling a lot of data, which is great. It helps you to kind of determine trends. But I think the question always comes down to, why do you think it's happening? Why do you feel like that just people aren't really looking for work as much as they need to anymore? Because I'll tell you what, I know personally, we're in California. Gas is like over $5 a gallon here. I mean, you go to the grocery store, the grocery budget I had last year isn't going to cover my monthly grocery budget that I have this year. So I feel like there's definitely a need for people to go to work. There's definitely a need for that increased wage, but is the talent just that superior that we're looking for specific type of talents these days, that niche talent deserves the higher pay, or that the employer is willing to pay that higher pay? I'm kind of looking for that. Why do you think the data is kind of trending in that direction?
Boy, there's a lot wrapped up in your question. Why do we need, why are we struggling to find the workers that we need? I think folks are becoming, recognize we're still at historically record low levels of unemployment, right? So uh, that's driving the availability of talent.
Supply and demand.
What was called the Great Resignation was really kind of a great reshuffling of folks that left jobs that they had prior to the pandemic, now saying, well, what kind of job do I want to have, and how do I orient my life in that direction? And that had really big impacts on some industries and many companies that were not positioned well to serve the needs of those folks who had stepped away and now we're looking for something. And now all those folks have come back, by the way. They not totally come back, but they're largely back in the labor market and they're doing different things. And so if you're in a company that wants to get back to the way that you used to do things, and you talk about that in your leadership meetings, that ship has sailed. You're in a different environment now. There's different expectations among employees that you'll want to hire, and there's different expectations among the employees that you have, which is why I think folks struggle with a lot of the complications of getting people to come back into the office, because folks like the fact that they don't have to go buy wardrobes. They like the fact that they don't have to commute. They like the fact that they're a lot more flexible with childcare and with other things in their lives. And taking all of that away is now a big ask. Whereas a lot of companies look at it like, well, we're just going back to the way that we used to be. Well, that's not today's reality.
Yeah, so it sounds a lot more like it's a supply and demand issue, right? There's a low inventory of qualified workers. Unemployment is really low, so when we're really looking for that talent, there's not a big pool that we're able to shop out of, and I think it makes a huge difference for the employee to kind of value themselves in this changing market. When you talk about the different data points, are you across multiple sectors? Because I know, like, for example, in the trades industry, that average age of the person in the trades is just going higher and higher, and there's less and less people coming into some of these industries where it can't be a remote job. There's no way the hole is going to get dug and the electrical is going to go up remotely. It has to be done with people in-house.
Yep.
So when we're looking at the data that you're collecting, is it across multiple industries like that?
Yeah, to give you an idea, we track about 80% of all the new jobs in the US. That's millions of new jobs every month. And it's top to bottom, all industries. So entry-level, hourly, skilled trades, blue collar, white collar, senior exec, all those jobs we track across all industries, including government, education, but also financial services, construction, manufacturing, healthcare, any industry we track. So, and we're seeing, some common trends that wages are going up, advertised wages are going up, competition is more intense than ever. And while there's some pockets where it's more or less the case, in general, it's a much more competitive labor market.
It's tough all the way around, no matter how you look at it. All right, let's get into some plug section. If people want to find out more, they're like, look, this is the data I absolutely need. I'm in a hiring position. I want to make the best possible choice I can. How do they get a hold of you? What can they expect when they do?
Yeah, so you can reach us through our website at wagescape.com. It's scrolling across the bottom of the page. There's a form that you can reach out to us on with your questions. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn or on my email. I'm at Cary@wagescape.com. And everybody's got their own questions. Everybody's got their own jobs that they care about, their own markets that they're in, their own skills that they're worried about, and so forth. And so just feel free to reach out. And we typically work with you to say, what exactly are you trying to figure out and why are you trying to figure that out? And then we tailor kind of what we can provide, but to best meet your needs.
Perfect. Cary, you've been a great guest here. I mean, you've shared a lot of information, and at the end of the day, people need to find a job, that need to have something that they're looking forward to. There's people who are in business that need to hire people correctly, and I think the data that you're providing people is amazing. So once more, ladies and gentlemen, wagescape.com is the website, wagescape.com. I'm going to ask you for high school advice. Got 17-year-old kids in the room. They're about to go out looking for a job. If you were to give advice to a 17-year-old kid today entering the labor market, what would you advise them to do in order to prepare and be one of those candidates that can be very competitive in a job market that's competitive like it is today?
Well, you don't have to know all the answers. In fact, any answers that you think you know are probably going to change over the course of the next few years in your life. So I would say get out there, work really hard at what you do, learn as much as you can, and then apply that to, continue to find out what is going to bring the most meaning in your life. Don't assume that you have to know the answers. Those of you that are going on to college, don't assume that your choice of major is the most important decision you'll ever make in your life, because it's not. The vast majority of folks actually don't work in the field that they majored in. There's some obvious exceptions, but your life is a learning opportunity. So set yourself up to continue to learn as much as possible. And frankly, you're at a stage in your life where you can have a lot of fun while you're doing it.
So true. So true. Don't forget about the fun part, because that at the end of the day, that's what life's about. I always say, like, the only thing you have when you're alone or when you're having a good time by yourself or whatever it is the memories that you make along the way. Those are the only things you can take with you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, nothing else matters really. You live life for the experiences, and you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. So, Cary, thank you very much for being on the program today. I got one more very selfish question. Ever since you went to our landing page, you booked a spot on our show, you got reminder emails, text messages, emails, that sort of stuff, and then you came on board and you created a long form piece of content with us. What was your experience like working with the Business Bros when it comes to creating marketing material?
Oh, it's great. You guys make it super easy. You clearly are in tune with what it takes to get people's attention and how to get them engaged with you. I would say I've given many interviews, and I would say that you're the most proactive and thorough in terms of engaging your guests and also making sure that your audiences get the most from the experience. So, I'd give you an 11 out of 10.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more time. If you are in the business of hiring some people, maybe you're in the financial sector, WageScape.com is what you want to check out. The data in there is immense. I mean, taking 80% of the job data across the country, and where trends are going, that's information that is useful that you could put to work today. So make sure you guys stop by WageScape.com. Cary, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.be